Hello and happy Friday to everybody. Welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast on this absolutely fake week of the year where some people pretend to work, other people just go, fuck this, mail it in. Let's circle back in the new year, shall we? So it is kind of like this fake week of like work, not work, super long weekend, great time of the year, holidays, etc.
You just said something that brought back like
Circle back?
my 8 months of corporate work in between my two media jobs. Every time I would see Let's Circle Back or hear Let's Circle Back, it would make me want to launch my laptop like down the hallway. Literally the most me and Julia were talking about this yesterday. Corporate lingo is a joke because everything is so like
decipherable.
Yeah, and it's behind your back, and it's like very grade school, and it like
just following up again.
I hope this finds you well.
Bitch, get back to me.
I hope this email finds you well. Well, no, thanks for asking because life is miserable. like what?
So shout out to Eugene Krabs, first one here in the chat, and he did notice right away. I am sitting here with the cake eater. Charlie I'm sorry. Adam Banks is the cake eater. Charlie Conway is legit.
I wear the C.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry. I thought you were wearing the Banks jersey for a second.
Lay down my jersey so Banks could play.
Yeah. So yes, Tyler Renee is enjoying the long holiday weekend as it is New Year's. And New Year's always brings about resolutions and goals and this and that. And Tyler, you had the idea since it's the last show of the year here. Let's get into kind of our, I don't know if you want to call them bold predictions, but something you believe about this Phillies team. And we're going to bring in John Foley here in a second, who's with us to broach this subject. And I think it's a very apt one for the date.
Yeah, before we chat with John, I think people see the phrase like bold prediction and they assume it has to be
a hot take. Yeah, no.
And I don't think the two have to go hand in hand as like a pair because like when you say bold, it doesn't necessarily have to be off the wall. Do you even believe this? Like, you know, quintessential, no disrespect, but like the quintessential, like, let's drive the phones type of conversation.
610.
Where like a bold take or a bold statement could just be something that didn't happen last year.
Yeah, that you believe.
Could happen this year that you believe. Yeah. So I think that differentiator is key for this conversation because I don't want people to just immediately go, well, Christopher Sanchez is winning Cy Young.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like, would it be great?
Yeah.
It'd be awesome. But you know what I mean?
You guys are just doing a sports talk radio thing.
Right,
well,
exactly.
We're not. We're actually having a fun discussion. And shout out Dave Dewar, second here in the chat. So let's bring him in. Our buddy John Foley, who covers the Phillies for us. He's on Twitter at 2008 Phils with a Z. Joins us. John, how was your holiday and the trip up to see the Rockettes with the little one, Christmas and all that? Hope it was a great week for the fam.
It was terrific. It was amazing. New York City at Christmas time, so much to do. Just the only downside is the crowds, crushing crowds anywhere you go, but that's to be expected. So.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed some time with the family. As you just heard, we're going to start here with our bold prediction, for lack of a better word for this, of 2024 for your Philadelphia Phillies, because the next time we do the show, it'll be next year. So I'll start.
You just hurt Renee's feelings so bad.
I will kick us off, and then we'll go to Tyler's, and then John will get yours. I think if it wasn't for an injury this year, it could have happened this year. But I think the bullpen staggered injuries at different times between Sir Anthony and Jose and the yada, yada, yada. And Craig Kimbrell was like your steadying force there for a long portion of the year. But I thought Jose Alvarado was absolutely on a trajectory. And the Phillies are never going to have probably a true closer per se, but my prediction for 2024 is that Jose Alvarado is going to become one of the premier, I'll call him high leverage relief pitchers in the National League. I think this guy has figured out how to pitch. I think he's got overpowering stuff, and I think with the lack of a major closer upgrade, I think that tells you they believe that guy's in-house. I think it's Jose Alvarado. I think they might possibly add a right-handed complement to him for those high leverage spots, a la the Kimbrell role. But I absolutely think at the end of the year, when you look at ERA, WHIP, all the major pitching categories for relievers, I think Jose Alvarado is going to be one of the tops in the NL.
Yeah, and I think, Jamie, that's I don't even know how bold that is, just based on the numbers. Like, you're right, there's probably not a de facto closer. Rob Thompson, I think he really stresses the high leverage outs. And you and I talked about that a lot during the postseason run. I know John has talked about that quite a bit as well, where like it doesn't necessarily have to be closer or ninth inning guy. It's high leverage guy in a specific spot. And you saw Jeff Hoffman get used, Jose Alvarado get used. I know Craig Kimbrell was the closer per se, but Alvarado's numbers the last 3 years have all gone in the right direction for the most part. The walk rate has gone down. His first year in Philly, remember, he was sent down to AAA at one point, was 18%, almost 19%. 2022, he was much better. It was down to 11. Last year, it was down to under 11 at 10.5. The home run rate has been fairly consistent. He was 2% 3 years ago. He was 1.7 last year. This past season, 2022, he was really, really good. But the strikeout rate for his career is 30%. He was at 38 and 37 in the last 2 seasons. He's figured something out. And because of that, the whip has gone down, the walks have gone down, the quality of pitch selection has been able to go up because he's not just a thrower anymore.
Yeah, he figured out pitching. Yeah. And I really believe he's going to be one of the premier bullpen arms in the National League, if not all of baseball this year. You know, the injuries robbed him a little bit. So, Tyler, what is your bold prediction?
I guess I'll go a little bit further.
I think yours is a little more bold than
yours
mine.
Is like
safe-ish.
Yeah, yours is kind of a mild sauce. Yeah. Mine's a little bit more. I wouldn't call it hot, but
you're habanero. I talked maybe about a little ghost pepper in there.
I talked about Brandon Marsh with Renee and Devon on Tuesday of the show, and one of my expectations for Brandon Marsh in 2024 is for him to get more consistent at bats against left-handed pitching. And now, granted, the only way that he gets more consistent at bats against left-handed pitching is that he doesn't strike out against left-handed pitching as much as he did in 2023 with 43 strikeouts and 96 at-bats. And the splits are evident, right? He's a 292 hitter against righties. He's a 229 hitter against lefties. If Brandon Marsh can get his 229 up to 255 against lefties, I'm not asking for 300, but he gets it up to like a 250, 255 range, and the strikeouts go down from nearly 45% to like 35%. Brandon Marsh is conceivably like a 280, 285 type of hitter, from both sides of the plate, because he was at 277 for the season last year. He gets that to 285, 290. I think Brandon Marsh has himself a near all-star level caliber 2024.
Yeah, I think he took a lot of strides, and John, you can chime in on this as well. I think offensively, when you look at the hitting coach last year and the young players, Brandon Marsh is absolutely one of those guys. Christian Pache's in there, Bryson Stott's in there, working with Kevin Long. I think they all took some pretty long strides offensively in their batting approach. So I absolutely see Brandon Marsh getting better, and I think the lack of an added outfielder to this point tells you that they probably believe he has another gear left in him.
Now, John, I'm sure you have multiple pictures of this somewhere of Brandon Marsh because your Photoshop skills have been off the charts awesome lately. There is just an image burned in the back of my brain of Brandon Marsh of like a breaking ball down towards the back foot where he is like, I don't know, doing a split karate chopping in between, and it's just like he's so out of whack because it was, a changeup or a sinker or some kind of, a splitter down at the back foot, which is where lefties want to sit against the left-handed hitter who they know can't turn on them. They don't want to let it out over the plate. That image is burned in my brain, and I think that image is going to slowly start to fade away in 2024 because of what we saw, a little bit of an upswing towards the back end of last year's regular season and into the playoffs where, like they realized this can't be a split. This has to be Brandon Marsh's position to run with, whether it's left field or center field.
I think it's going to be left.
I think that you've got a guy who, if he becomes serviceable against lefties and hits as well as he did against righties, that's a 280, 285, 290 type of hitter over the course of, instead of 404 at bats, probably getting closer to the 500 range.
Yeah, and if you can up those home runs a little bit and get close to that 20 range.
Yeah, I'm not sure the power ever gets to that point. I don't think
so either, but if he really could get to that 20 range, like he is, an everyday outfielder.
I think 15's probably his max.
Probably.
But if the strikeout rate comes down, the RBI rate might go up.
Sure. And you saw that with Bohm this year.
Right.
The RBI skyrocketed. Power didn't necessarily increase. John, your thoughts on Brandon Marsh? Because Tyler's is much bolder than mine. As MBD points out in the chat, I'm basically a coward for my bold prediction, which is fair. But, John, what are your thoughts on Brandon Marsh upping his game another level?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, what a find Brandon Marsh was for the organization. You know, the expectations when he arrived were not for him to even be the caliber of player he was last season. I mean, you were looking at, all right, we need to improve defense. He's a glove out there. He can cover a lot of ground. I don't to be sitting here now and having a reasonable conversation about how good he might be and throwing around some of these numbers is incredible. Now, can he do it? I don't know. I follow the logic. I think, you put in more work against lefties. I do know at the winter meetings, Rob Thompson expressed confidence in Marsh's ability to hit lefties. So I would expect to see some improvement there. I mean, he seems to work well with Kevin Long, improving upon those numbers he had with the Angels before he got here. So hopefully there's more room for improvement. He seems like a guy who works tirelessly to improve. Now, all that said, moving from 229 versus lefties to 255 versus lefties, that's a tough task.
It's a hefty jump, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a hefty jump, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think this is good in terms of bold, but entirely realistic. And I mean, if he can make that jump, and Rojas can be serviceable at the plate,
Yoked Johan.
Yeah. And based on these pictures, I mean, I'm expecting 30 home runs next year. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
One last year. But yeah, now you've really got something on it. If you're playing Rojas every day in center, Marsh every day in left, and
I think Marsh to that point, John. I think Marsh is the guy that, like, if he does take like the next step in his career offensively, I think he's almost like the biggest game changer for this lineup. Because most other guys are already kind of like maxed out. Like Bryson Stott, is he going to get better? Yeah, he can, but it's going to be like a slight improvement because he was so good this year. Harper, Turner, Bohm kind of took that step this year a little bit. Castellanos, all those guys are kind of like capped out. You know what I mean? So, like they're all at their level. So if Marsh is one of those guys that has a next gear available to him.
So I failed calculus in high school. So hopefully this analogy makes sense. I don't know, John, you might be better at math than me and Jamie.
I've been on a week-long bender. Math is not like
I don't know if it's like the bell curve or like I don't know like what the exponential rise of Brandon Marsh is, but like go back to 2022, 60 games played against left-handed pitching, 96 at bats. Same amount of at bats in 2023 over the course of 72 games, which is a little strange, but the strikeout rate was effectively the same. But the average went up from 188 to 229. So that's a 40-point jump. Expecting another 40-point jump is crazy. Like, because it's a lot easier to go from 188 to 229 than it is to go from 229 to 269.
Right.
But if you can go from 229, maybe 255 was a little much, but if you can get to 245, you get up to an 11-point jump to a 15-point jump.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit more realistic, and it still bolsters a guy who hit 290 against righties last year.
Yeah, I think it's entirely within the realm of reason. I mean, the counter argument would be he showed all that improvement. If anything, he may be due to regress against lefties. But that's not how it sounds from within the organization. It sounds like they really do have confidence in him to hit lefties. We'll see if he actually gets the opportunities. But they're at least paying lip service to the idea that that Marsh is more of an everyday guy.
Yeah. So, John, in our text conversation, you threw out one and you said you'll be able to back it up. Now, what is your bold prediction for 2024 in your Philadelphia Phillies?
All right, I want to preface this and say I'm actually making a bold prediction. I'm with the chat on you, Jamie. I don't know about.
Is that what this whole thing was about? Making bold predictions? I thought we were just saying stuff.
I mean, I've never heard. Jose Alvarado is like one of those guys. I just think he's going to get his national respect more this year.
I think the Phillies might play 81 home games at Citizens Bank Park this year.
They might wear their pinstripe uniforms.
Oh wait, no, they won't. They're playing in London.
That's true. Yeah. Does that count as a home game?
I don't know.
So you're wrong.
What an idiot.
This guy doesn't even know baseball.
I do think Alvarado has already established himself as one of the premier high leverage relievers in the game. As far as whether he can take control of some sort of closer role. The Phillies say that, they're more about mixing and matching. Anybody can pitch the ninth, but when somebody steps up and takes it, sort of like Kimbrel did in the first half of the season, of course that's better.
Yeah.
Like the mix and match. If you have Kimbrel before, he sort of went off the rails.
All right, I get the coward award today. It's fine. MBD in the chat has a good one here. Christopher Sanchez, top 40 statistical starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. That is bold and beautiful.
So 40 is, it feels like you go, no way. Like there's 30 teams and
I don't know,
5 starters. And
we're going to look at the Cy Young odds. It's not like the prettiest list I've ever seen in my life.
It's not out of the realm of possibility when you go the entirety of Major League Baseball and you think of some of the teams, whether they've got either vets who stink or young guys who maybe haven't gotten good yet, and maybe a combination of the two if you're like, the Nomad A's, or, pick a team in the AL Central that's apparently not the Royals and Tigers anymore. Like the Twins still clearly have good pitching. So maybe that was an unfair statement. But if you look around the league, there's a lot of bad pitching. There's a lot of really, really bad pitching. And maybe 40 doesn't fall outside of the realm of unfair after all. Like you just immediately think that seems high of a jump to take.
Not really.
But maybe it's not.
He was great this year. I like that one, MBD. Even though I'm a coward and you pointed it out, that's a good one. You understood the assignment.
I mean, at a certain point, Christopher Sanchez does just have to start getting more respect. The numbers are there, and they continue to be there, and they continue to be there. We'll see if they let him pitch deeper in the games than they did last season.
I hope so, because he earned it.
Apprehension there. Yeah, exactly. He earned it. He at least earned a shot at it.
All right, John, let's hear yours.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to go with at least 100 wins for your Philadelphia Phillies in 2024. It's
something they've done, John, in our lifetime. What, once?
One time in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think.
I think maybe some of those teams in the late 70s hit 100, and then of course the record is 102 in 2011. But here's how I got there. If you look at from June 3rd on, which is fairly early in the season.
Sure.
From June 3rd on, they went 65 and 40. This is after bottoming out at 25 and 32. 65 and 40 after June 3rd. That's already a 100-win pace. So they played at a 100-win pace for most of the season.
Yeah, I think they were third in baseball during that time period till the end of the year, only behind the Braves and Dodgers.
Right. I think that's accurate. And then you factor in that, okay, Harper returned.
Sure.
Prior to that June 3rd date, he was back in May, but he wasn't really himself yet. At least with the power. He returned on May 2nd, but then in June, no home runs. July, 2 home runs, and then he finally got back to being himself. 10 home runs in August. So you had less of Bryce Harper than I think than a lot of people might imagine. With him having such an early return, I don't think you had the real Bryce Harper until August. So if you have that Bryce Harper for a full season, Trey Turner also, and the ovation was I think August 4th. So until August 4th, he didn't really heat up. So again, we're going back to June 3rd. From June 3rd on, they played at 100-win pace. And Harper and Turner weren't really themselves until August.
Yeah.
You look at that and you're like, also you got to think you're probably the odds are you get a better season out of Aaron Nola than you did.
I was
last
just going to
season.
say, I think that's totally fair to expect a better season out of Aaron Nola.
Over the course of the last 5 full seasons, so take 2020?
Did you look up how many teams have done this?
What's that, win 100 games?
Yeah.
So over the course of the last 5 full seasons, if you take out 2020, it's gone 3, 4, 3, 4, 3.
Okay.
So last year there were 3 teams that won 100-plus games. So my question, I guess, if you don't mind, to just ask both of you guys, if there's projected about 3 or 4 100-win teams, which of these 100-win teams doesn't win 100 next year? The Dodgers, the Braves, or the Baltimore Orioles?
I would probably say the Orioles.
They're the 3 that won 100-plus games last year.
I'd probably say the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them can do it again, and maybe this year's a little bit of an anomaly, and you have sort of an extra team over 100. You do got to think the Dodgers and the Braves are going to win 100 games.
Yeah.
The Orioles, a little less proven. Great baseball team, but they don't feel.
It's hard to
like
repeat as such a young team too.
Exactly. So I'd pick the O's if I had to pick one of those 3, but I think it's entirely possible that they all do it again.
So
the Phillies
next
join them.
The next team that won the 4th most games was Tampa. They won 99. So Tampa, Toronto.
And if Wander Franco wasn't a creep, they probably,
maybe
might get that
Houston,
extra
maybe
win or
Texas. Those are like your 90-plus win teams from a season ago in the American League. 100's a lot.
So
that's all I keep coming back to. It's so many wins for a team that has clearly proven that they're a much better postseason team than they are a 162-game team. If you said 95, like that gap between 95 and 100 feels a lot to me.
It feels a lot, but again, you look at it, and granted, I'm looking at, okay, everything that went right last season goes right again, and on top of it, you mix in these extras. Some things might just go wrong. You could have injuries, who knows? But the talent, I think the talent is there. I think, if it wasn't for these slow starts the past couple seasons, I think they have demonstrated so far that they're better in a short series. But you look at their rotation; they have 5 quality starters. That's the type of thing that can set you up to really go on some big runs. And I could see it happen. And then one final note on that is just because the Braves will also be winning so many games if the Phillies are sort of off the charts and
knock them down a couple.
Yeah, it might knock them down a couple, but the competition would keep things going right through the very end of the season, whereas a lot of times teams might be up in the high 90s, and then they start setting up the rotation because they've got first place locked down. I don't think that would happen for the Phillies. I think the Braves would be right there, and they'd have to play everything out right through to the end.
Yeah, that's why I picked the Orioles for that same reason, because I think the AL East is not going to be as bad as it was last year. The Yankees have already improved. You would think the Red Sox are eventually going to do something, but who knows?
And I hate to say it because they're a young group for the most part. This almost feels like a make or break season for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays should be better.
They've had this core together for a while. The Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio group with,
and they added Springer.
Different levels of success, right? And Springer was added. I think that maybe it's unfair because the guys are like 24, 25, 23. But it feels like one of those, you're starting to think about things season if things don't go their way.
Yeah, it's tough. I wish Ohtani had been on that jet. Landed in Toronto.
Robert Herjavec. So I think John Foley wins the bold take award of the day.
Think so.
Because as MBD points out, I had looked it up also. The Phillies have only done this 3 times since 1886. They did it in 1976. They did it in 1977, back-to-back, and then, of course, they did it in 2011. So it is certainly no easy feat, but also the Phillies historically are one of the worst organizations in sports. So let's hope it's obtainable, because I think, to your point, John, the talent is certainly there, and you had so many guys with quote-unquote down years last year that you should elevate to potentially that level. But I would agree, like 95, 96 would be a huge win for me. If they can get to 100, then you're really cooking.
I mean, look at where we are though, right? Like the goal used to be 81 wins, and then it was going to get to like 88 and steal a wild card. Now we're talking about, are they going to be in the 90s? Can they get to 100? They may or may not do it, but it's a great feeling to know they have the talent, that it's even in the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was a fun discussion, John. So, we appreciate you hopping on. You can always check out John on Twitter at 2008 Phils with a Z. He'll be writing on our website, allphly.com. So make sure you're checking out his stuff and following along. John, from all of us here, have a great New Year's, and we will talk to you next week.
Same to you. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, John. That was a fun discussion. John definitely won the boldest. I won the coward award.
I think it's certainly
and
a bold
yours
statement.
Was like bold yet realistic.
Attainable, I think, is a word that I would use for that. I hate to say what I'm about to say.
Ooh, spicy.
The Phillies are they're
say it with your chest.
I find it very difficult to assume that they're going to get close to, like you were saying, the 95-96 range.
That would be huge.
I don't even think it gets to that. Like they're just.
What did they finish last year with? 87?
They finished with 90. They were 90 and 72. I think that's about where they sit. They're 89 to 91. They're going to make the playoffs because the NL is terrible.
Yeah.
So like I think that the Cubs will be improved. I think that
will they?
Even I don't know. They've not done anything. I just assume by natural, there's some semblance of a step forward. They would think. I think the Reds are going to be improved. I think Milwaukee takes a step back. I think the Cardinals are going to be better than they were. Like that was just a dumpster fire year for them.
Yeah, I mean they got 4 new starting pitchers.
Yeah, I mean unless their games all start at like 9:00 at night, where it's past their starting pitchers' bedtimes. I think that the NL is winnable.
Is there for the taking
for like 4 teams, because I think there's a lot of good teams. I think there's a handful of. Let me rephrase that. I think there's a lot of average teams. There's a handful of dumpster fire teams. And then there's a handful of really good teams.
Yeah.
And I think the Phillies are at the bottom
of the really good teams. Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing I agree with is telling you all about Wheelhouse Cards, because it is awesome. They have 2 locations in Wayne and Westchester, and they are our go-to sports card, gift, and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley. Their motto is cards and community, because a love of sports unites us all. That's why we're all here in the chat. Eugene Krabs, I saw your comments about the Phillies win totals in other years, but that community brings us all together. And they have tons of your favorite cards, like Topps Chrome Baseball, Mosaic Football, as well as a lot of gifts and apparel, and T-shirts, hats, hoodies from brands like Mitchell & Ness, 47 brand, Junk Food, Starter, and of course, Shy Vintage Sports. And if you're looking to have your sports card collection graded, well, Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also have a ton of different family-friendly events and birthday parties every single month. So stop into either of those stores in Wayne or Westchester. Maybe you got some holiday money that's burning a hole in your pocket. They're open 7 days a week for you at 11 a.m. Use that code PHLY to get $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. And be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Wheelhouse Cards. I follow them. It's a very fun follow. And let me also tell you that when I went to my Christmas party, I had It's a Philly Thing, Eagles ugly sweater on.
Yeah, I think we use that phrase unfairly with that sweater.
It's not ugly,
but it's a really nice sweater.
It's kind of done in the ugly Christmas sweater fashion. And I was getting asked by everybody at the party, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? And I was like, dude, FOCO. Mm-hmm. You got to go to FOCO. And again, use that code PHLY with your purchases, because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparels. I was wearing my friendship bracelets during Red October, accessories, toys. I know our own Mickey Durkin has bought a bunch of bobbleheads from them because he's a bobblehead fiend. It's the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms, because football and tailgating season is winding down. They got everything you need, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, overalls, everything you need. And they've hooked us up and provided awesome pieces for our sets, which you see here behind us on the shelves and all over our offices. FOCO always has your back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. FOCO is awesome, so make sure you're supporting them in your merchandising needs. Now, to the thumbnail of our show today. I just saw it this morning. Jon Heyman. Now, Jon Heyman more or less is a Scott Boras puppet.
Mouthpiece.
Yes,
Yeah, I
a
think so.
mouthpiece. So you do have to take everything he says with a grain of salt because he likes to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and eventually something sticks. He is good. I'm not trying to totally discredit him, but he does throw a lot out there.
Sure.
And it's probably all coming from Scott Boras.
I would say a lot of it, yeah.
Most of it. And Scott,
Fair or unfair, you're
Yeah.
probably correct.
Yeah. So the thing that came out most recently from Heyman's piece on the New York Post was that the Phillies are still in on starting pitching, namely Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. Do I think it's realistic? Probably not, because most of the local people that we trust and read are saying the Zach Wheeler extension is the number one priority.
Right.
I would think they have that stacked above Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. But if there's a way where you can manage both of them, I totally could see the Phillies being in on one of these guys because of what you just said. They're at that bottom of the super good teams in the NL, and the Dodgers and Braves are super teams, and they're nasty. And you are at a chance now where you're on their heels. Something like that could kind of put you ahead or even to with them. So from that standpoint, and John Middleton wanting his damn trophy back, and this being, you know, like a 2 or 3 year win now window, I think there's some truth to it.
So I think that there's truth to them looking into another starting pitcher, because we talked about how, you know, the offer to Yamamoto is never going to be the top offer. But I think that there is some value into them looking into the starting pitching market. I don't know if I buy into the value of them spending big money.
Well, it depends what the deal is.
The later that some of these guys sit around, I would imagine
it increases the Phillies' chances.
The cheaper the market gets,
sure,
I would think. Unless so the only thing that would change would be if Blake Snell signed in late January for a $7 bazillion, and everybody went, "Oh my goodness, this market is entirely shifted." Mm-hmm. Because the longer that these guys sit around, the cheaper that the contract gets. I don't think that the one thing I will say though, I don't believe that the Zach Wheeler extension and signing another pitcher are in the same pool of money, but it's the pool of money to sign another pitcher is much more shallow than the pool of money to re-sign Zach Wheeler.
Yes, agreed. And as Dave P says in the chat, you know, super teams guarantee nothing. Yeah, sure. I mean, the Dodgers are guaranteed jack shit this year. But it's just money, you know. And if John Middleton,
yeah, you can say that.
Yeah, I mean, if
you're not the one taking your wallet out and
none of us here have to
swiping your credit card.
None of us here have to Venmo out to Mr. Middleton to go get Blake Snell. Now, Blake Snell is an interesting one because it's not very often, Tyler, that you see a 2-time Cy Young winner. I think only the second pitcher to do it in both leagues. Seventh. I was way off. I'm an idiot.
I think it was 7.
The red wine is melting my brain this week. You're probably right. 2 sounds ridiculous now that I say it out loud. But Blake Snell, 2-time Cy Young winner, exceptional in those Cy Young years, really pretty good most of the time, had a stinker or 2 of a season. He's talked about an MBD, I know is going to go off in the chat here. Mm-hmm. He is anti-Snell. Now, you this morning when we were discussing this, you went to baseballpornhubreference.com and deep dove his stats to try and find out why people dislike Blake Snell so much. Age 31, you know, might not get the money he once thought he was, but he was clearly like 3rd or 4th on this starting pitcher checklist, I guess you'd call it, for this offseason. What did you find in your deep dive that think led to this reputation?
I think the easy thing to say is the walk rate's too high, right? 99 walks led the league in baseball last year, despite the fact that he only threw 180. I say only 180 innings. It's a lot of innings, but it's not. I think people still look at the 200 threshold as wow, you threw 200 innings. That's a workhorse. So I think the 99 walks is the easy one to turn to and say, the command problem is there. I think the deeper dive just into last season, we can talk about the fact that he's missed a lot of time over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, the COVID year withstanding. The deeper dive is what is heralded as the stranded base runner percentage, left on base percentage. And anybody over 75% means that they've stranded 75% of their inherited runners, which you would think about as a good thing. You would look at it and say, okay, this guy's working out of danger. If he gives up a base runner, he's not rattled. He's not the guy that allows one hit to spiral into 4 base runners in an inning.
Which you can make the case Nola has a tendency to
Nola
do.
has a problem with it.
Yeah.
The one thing with Blake Snell last year was he was at 86.7%, which means that he basically never gave up inherited runs or runners that he, I shouldn't say inherited because that is a different connotation. The runners that he allowed to get on base, he stranded almost 87% of them, which again, theoretically seems really, really good. But when you have a guy whose walk rate is as high as his is, and you're stranding 87% of the runners, I think a lot of people go
playing with fire.
When does the luck run out?
Sure.
And so I think between that, his slim build, his injury history, and the fact that I think the moment that his velocity dips, he's going to be cooked.
Sure.
Worries people for a long-term deal.
So I threw out this number to you. Let's say Snell, and a lot of comments, Snell is just a polarizing figure here in the chat. A lot of people. Yeah. So I threw this number out to you because I would have hesitancy throwing a 5 or 6 year deal at him at age 31 because of what you just said. When the velocity goes, does his whole game go? If I were, if he's sitting around late January and a 3-year, $85 million deal gets it done and it doesn't prohibit you from a Wheeler extension, are you dabbling in those waters?
The shorter the term length of the deal, the more excited
Let's say 3, because I doubt he's going to ever take less than that.
I think I would. 3 is probably the most I would do. And NBD makes a good point. His BABIP was at like 250 something, 256. The average BABIP for a pitcher is about 300. And basically what that's saying is when the ball is hit and play, like it eliminates strikeouts and walks and things like that from the conversation. If the average is 300 and his was 256, it means it probably is going to come back. It likely will regress. It's not going to be, if his is at 256 and that means, and then next year he gets to 270 or 280, even if he's below league average, that means he's going to be giving up more hits. And if he's walking the amount of guys that he's walked, even with the strikeout rate being off the charts at 230, he's probably in for a regression season.
Yeah. Eugene Krabs with a zinger. He said, Snell looks like a dude who books a meeting at 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah, I ain't showing up.
He totally does look like that dude. There's something about his face I just hate.
It's the mustache, or the bad mustache beard combo.
Yeah, I think it's the skinny face with the weird facial hair combo. But this isn't a... If it was 3 years, $85 million, I'm doing it.
I think so. I mean, we talked about bad contracts. Me and Renee did the other day. Like Lance Lynn got, I think, 10 and some change for a season. Lance Lynn stinks.
Yeah.
And the thing with Lance Lynn, too, not only does he stink at this point, he throws one pitch. Now he's like Bartolo Colon at this point.
Big sexy.
But the control is not as good as what Bartolo Colon's was. You could tell even at 40 when he was throwing 85 and it looked like meatballs. It's like, all right, his two-seam has break. He's throwing sinker, cutter, fastball, two-seam, and his control was still really good. So if Lance Lynn gets 11, let's say, 3 for 85 is about 27. It's not a fair comparison because A, it's a 1-year deal, and B, it's a lot more money. But it just puts it into perspective, like, pitchers make more money than they should.
Yes. I mean, does Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer deserve $43 million at this point in their career? No. They don't. Pitchers are always overpaid, but if there's a opportunity, is Blake Snell better? The way I would view it, because I don't give a damn about the Phillies' money, is that he's not Taijuan Walker, and he's better than Taijuan Walker and Christopher Sanchez. He's probably better than Ranger Suarez too. Not when it comes to postseason time, though, because Ranger's
been incredible in the postseason.
He's got those big old balls that he just trots out every October, and he becomes unhittable. But he becomes, if you have a Wheeler, Snell, and Nola top 3, that's horrifying in a playoff series.
Yeah, and even if there is a regression, let's say maybe he's closer to the 3.4 he posted in 2022 or the 3.3 he posted in 2020, over the course of 11 starts. I don't think he's going to be too bad.
No.
Like he was in 2021. If you're probably not going to get 32 starts from him. That was an anomaly last season. You're probably getting 25.
So you have his run. What's his rundown? Just buzz through
so
him.
19, 24, 31, 23, COVID year 11, 27, 24, 32. So he averages. So he started 191 games over the course of 7 full and an 8th season.
Okay. So interesting. Jordan Montgomery would interest me a little bit less. It seems like the Yankees are big on Jordan Montgomery. As they're kind of pushing in to be the super team now also. So we'll see what happens. But the fact that Heyman threw it out there, it's, Dave Dombrowski doesn't rest on his laurels. Like he's got a little bit of that Howie Roseman gene.
Always shopping.
Where he's always shopping. He's always making phone calls. So the fact that they are discussing things with both of those agents, you got to know what the value is on the open market. So it's always good to inform yourself and stay in the game.
Speaking of Dave Dombrowski and kind of always open to different opportunities, Steven Garrison, Julie, if you don't mind scrolling up just a little bit, asked a really good question on a guy that I'm super intrigued on. Asked about the low risk, high reward of Brandon Woodruff.
Ooh.
So he had shoulder surgery. He's not going to pitch. I don't think he pitches at all.
I think he's got 2 years, or he's got 2 years left on his deal.
No, he's a free agent.
Oh, is he? Oh, he is.
Yeah,
a
that's
free
why
agent.
that's why he got let go from. I think
I'm confusing with Burns. All right.
Burns has
1 year.
1 year,
Yes.
I think.
The Brewers have to decide if they're going to sell.
Correct.
On that, the Burns
But
front.
Woodruff is super intriguing because the
He's
numbers
awesome.
over the last couple of years have been really, really good.
He's like
And
one of those low-key, sneaky, great pitchers.
Sure. 3.1 ERA over the course of his career.
And that beats Snell in a lot of seasons.
Started 11 games last year, got hurt, needs the shoulder surgery, is not going to pitch at all in 2024. I'd be super stunned if he does.
I
you're
think
gonna
they
have
said
to
like
sign him.
September is like absolute best
Right.
case scenario.
So you're gonna have to sign him
You're gonna
to
have
a
to
2-year deal
eat it
with
for a
you're
year.
just eating money for a season, hoping that year 2 is, and maybe because he's hurt, you can get away with a 3-year deal with a team option in year 3.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, we're gonna trust you, pay the money in year 1. Let's see what you can do when you take the mound again in year 2. Year 3 we'll reevaluate.
yeah,
Super intriguing, even though he's not going to pitch next year.
it is, and few teams that are truly competing can afford to do that.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't thought much about him because he's not going to pitch this year, but that is a very intriguing name.
And I think you're going to have, if they were to find a way to sign a guy like that, you're going to get the immediate, that's a great signing. And then people go, okay, he's not pitching.
Yeah.
And then you're going to put him on the back burner and you're going to forget about him for a year. And then the Wheeler
and then this time next year when we're doing the show, we're going to be like, holy shit, the Phillies got
Yeah.
Wheeler, Nolan, Woodruff.
Right. And then Rangers
the
are
fourth.
4. Like, you're going to go, whoa.
Yeah.
We're cooking with gas here now.
Yeah.
Assuming Woodruff can come back. It's
I
a
wonder
big
what
if,
kind of
but
deal that translates to, since he's not pitching this year. Like, you do have to pay him something because he'll get offers for a little bit this year.
Right.
But, like, does that do a 2-year team option, 3rd year for, I don't even know,
15, like 15 in the 3rd year. Like, it's the biggest number in year 3.
Yeah. Do you think it would be that low?
For the 1 year? I'm saying for the 1 year.
For the first year?
No, the first year would probably be like a
7 or 8?
a 7 or 8. Year 2 probably bumps to 10.
I would think you'd have to go
It's got to be
higher.
more than that.
I would think you'd have to go 15 for year 2 and like 20
for year 3. Right.
So you're looking at roughly
40-something million. 3
close
years,
to
45.
50.
3 or 45.
345, 350.
I would
Screw it.
would do
Go
it.
spend some money, John Middleton. It's funny, like being off for the past week and just being on Twitter and listening to radio and like there's been a lot of Phillies comment. Like the perception is out there that the Phillies are having this horrible offseason because they haven't done anything. And they're just going to run it back with the same team. And a lot of people are, I think, starting to get irritated by it. And I do get it. But I also think there's a bullpen or outfield move coming.
I think the way that the season ended last year, people are very discontent with running it back.
Yes.
And to a point, I understand where they're coming from. But I also, you've talked about it plenty. I don't know what big move you wanted, with the exception of
like adding Duvall would be
absolute
big
home
for
run
me.
swing for Yamamoto, which would have come out of left field.
Sure.
I'm not quite sure which move you like genuinely A, believe could happen, and B, believe you want. because the guys that are left, you're not getting Cody Bellinger.
No.
You're not getting Matt Chapman. You're not getting like these like JD Martinez, like those
He's
type
a DH.
of hitters you're not getting.
No.
So do you want to focus on an arm? And if so, who's the arm?
I'd love Stevenson or Hicks.
I think, and that's the thing. I think people.
And even Liam Hendricks, I saw Mickey mention earlier. I'd love to take a shot on him.
Another guy that's not going to pitch next year. So you're giving it.
I thought he had a shot at like after the All-Star break.
I don't think he's. I would be surprised if he pitched. I don't think he's.
Okay.
I think because he had Tommy John.
Oh, right.
So I just don't know when it was.
And he's not Bryce Harper. He's not going to come
Yeah,
back.
he's not
on.
robotic. But the point is, I think you're looking at a signing, like you said, a Hicks or a Stevenson, a Duvall. I know the Jock Peterson
Duvall
thing,
would be on the high end.
I know the Jock Peterson thing was weird, but
that
like
was so weird.
I don't even know if they're interested in I shouldn't say interested, if they're willing to go in the realm of like Jorge Soler and Teoscar Hernandez, like those type of players that are
I would love Teoscar personally.
B level,
Yeah. High
borderline,
strikeout
yeah.
rate, which is not. If you're looking to improve last year's playoff performance, you want a guy with a more solid contact rate than Teoscar. But he's got pop.
Sure he does.
And in Citizens Bank Park, and that's the other thing to consider in the Snell conversation. He's going from Petco to Citizens Bank Park. How does that weigh in the conversation? But I think Teoscar could, if he's, let's say they made the Teoscar move, which is probably unlikely, and Marsh becomes the everyday center fielder, Teoscar your left fielder, he could probably hit 30 in this park.
Yeah, I've been adamantly vocal about no on Teoscar Hernandez, no interest at all.
High strikeout rate.
But I get your point.
Like there's pop there,
Sure.
and this outfield really doesn't have a lot of pop. And I think that's one of the things that's just like kind of a bummer from a typically historically power group of players.
Sure, and I think too this team has gotten, or this fan base has gotten to a point where over the last couple of years you've gone Harper, Turner, Real Muto, Schwarber, Castellanos, Wheeler to, back a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's been big time signings over the last couple of years, and this has been a quieter offseason.
It has.
And so I think it has people up in arms.
Yeah, it does. And Mickey Durkin says, bring Hoskins back. That's our man Vince's take. The only thing about bringing Hoskins back is that means Kyle Schwarber has to play the field again.
I just threw up in my mouth. Sorry, podcast listeners.
I literally just never want to see that ever again. So you would think the Cubs are relying on him as their insurance policy. I think Heyman also said that they now think Bellinger is going to return there.
Mm-hmm.
They're back in the mix for that. So
you want to talk about quiet offseason. Cubs fans have a right.
They haven't done anything.
To be pissed off because they've done literally nothing. Not spent a dollar, not made a trade. Like even Oakland did something. Well, I shouldn't. Can I still call them Oakland?
Yeah, I don't know when you shift to Las Vegas.
The wandering nomads.
I feel so bad for Athletics fans.
What do I call them?
Yeah, I don't know. So MBD has a super chat. Welcome and thank you, MBD. He says they keep flirting with another starting pitcher. Firing, that would
words are hard.
Yamamoto, the Heyman report we just talked about. Basically, what do you have to do to make that happen? Do you have to trade Taijuan Walker? And I did see Mickey Durkin talking about that. Taijuan Walker is on average $18 million a year for 3 more years.
Yep.
It's not unmovable, especially if you eat some of the money. And there is something to be said for Taijuan Walker being a regular season arm that gets you through a long season and is just one of those back of the rotation guys. Did they overpay for him when you compare it to like Lucas Giolito's and some of the guys the Rangers got? Yeah, absolutely they did. Can you get out of it? Yeah, but it's going to be tricky. But if you were to bring in, say, a Blake Snell or a Jordan Montgomery, you'd absolutely, I think, have to get rid of Taijuan Walker.
So somehow. I think the overpay with the contract comes with, I'm looking at some of the names that have signed over the last couple of weeks, and 2 names specifically stick out to me was Seth Lugo signed a 3-year, $45 million deal in Kansas City, which was a big signing for Kansas City. I think that Seth Lugo is, he's a little bit of both. Like he's pitched out of the bullpen He has pitched as he started. He was a starter with the Mets. He then became a bullpen guy. Started 26 games for the Padres last year and posted a 3.5 ERA. So shows that he can throw innings and give you something. Now, granted, the innings were not the same as what Taijuan Walker pitched because he only threw 146 innings. But like Seth Lugo got $15 million a year, and then Kenta Maeda. I know he's 35, about to be 36, but he got $12 million a year from the Tigers. Who, if you said to me, Tyler, would you rather have Kenta Maeda or Taijuan Walker? It's Kenta Maeda every day of the week.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another super chat from Vince. He says, Hoskins over Teoscar. Put Harper in left field. From Vince really loves what I'm learning.
He loves the idea of Hoskins returning.
Yes, and I think there is something to it because of like the clubhouse nature and how much he was loved here and yada yada yada, the continuity and chemistry and blah blah blah. But it just means that you're putting in a way below average. Unless Harper is going to play left field, I don't see where it works because you shifted in this offseason and Harper. Look, I think Harper said he wanted to play first base. I don't think this is the Phillies being like, hey, you should play first. Right. I think Harper said, this is probably good for the long haul of my career, moving to first. I really enjoyed it. I was more in on the action, yada, yada, yada. The Phillies fall on the sword and say, oh, This is what we want. So I don't think all of a sudden now you're going to say you're in left field. And if you're not doing that, that means Kyle Schwarber has to play left field.
You have not, if you backtrack on your word at this point, you have not only disgruntled Bryce Harper, but you have, I think, objectively made your team defensively worse. Now, granted, Rhys Hoskins getting everyday at bats again, like that was there was pop that you were missing this season.
Absolutely,
that was definitively noticeable,
and it staggered the lefty righty thing like perfectly.
But I think you get definitively worse defensively,
absolutely,
because Harper, to me, at this point of his career, I think is on the track to be a better defensive first baseman than he ever was a defensive outfielder.
Absolutely.
And Rhys Hoskins is a traffic cone.
Yes. I mean, Harper at best is an average outfielder.
Yes.
At best.
Yeah, he's aggressive, he's smart, he works hard, he's a good athlete. Those things get you to a point where you're not bad.
Yeah, sure. You're average.
I don't expect anything further than
he's better than Castellanos.
About a 0 defensive WAR.
Yes, but when you saw him go to first base, you went, "Oh, this is like what he was meant to do." Like he was right away, game one, better than Rhys Hoskins at first base.
Correct.
So it was just like, I think this is the best for the long haul, and not to mention Harper wants a contract renegotiation or extension. So do you really want to play with fire with his kind of mental well-being and status with the team? Not really.
No, I don't want to mess with any kind of calm that they have.
No, not at all. God, time flies, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Well, these two seam heads just having a nerdy baseball discussion, and we lost track of this whole draft we were going to do today.
Yeah, well,
there's a lot of stuff we still have to get into. But
listen, if you want to hang out with me and Jamie, use the Game Time app. We'll hang out with you at a Phil's game this upcoming season.
Absolutely.
Because the Game Time app allows you to see your seat before you buy your seat. And I was telling this story the other day, Jamie, about how me and a couple of my friends went to a concert out in Reading a couple weeks ago, right after Thanksgiving. And we bought these seats thinking that they were awesome because they were lower level. It was at the Reading Hockey Arena. You know what I'm talking about? It was lower level. We thought these seats were great. And we get there and we realized we're basically directly behind the control board. So we
this is why the tickets were so affordable.
So we got these tickets because we just thought row and number, and they sounded great. And listen, the concert was a blast, and we had to stand the whole time, and we made it work. But if we would have used the Game Time app, we wouldn't have had to worry about that because we would have seen where our seat description was because we were able to buy our tickets with that picture. It shouldn't be stressful. Game Time makes it fast and easy. You can not just buy for Phillies games like we talked about with sports. You can buy music, comedy, theater near you. And of course, they have last-minute killer deals with the best price guaranteed, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have because they have flash deals, they have last-minute deals, easy to buy tickets, and the lowest price guaranteed. They'll also give you event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc., because they are the best. And if you're a first-time user, go to Game Time, download the app, and use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase today. The Game Time app, I cannot recommend it enough. And while we're here, let me tell you about another one of our favorite sponsors, because I just got turned on to these guys at Reading Terminal.
Yeah.
And it's Bagel & Co. because, listen, you understand there's certain foods that are good in certain parts of the country, and Jersey and New York kind of have a market on bagels.
Yeah, we're taking that back.
Not anymore, because Bagel & Co. is the best bagel around. You don't have to go up the Jersey Turnpike. You don't have to get on 95. And you don't have to go all the way to the city like John did when it was crowded, because it's the holiday time and everybody thinks they need to be in New York. And John said the crowds were pretty rough. You can stay local and get a Brooklyn-style bagel made in Philly. These bagels are the best in Philly. They're large. That's why they call them the Brooklyn-style, New York-style bagel. And they have up to 30 different varieties of cream cheese, on top of the fact that they've got 15 to 20 different types of bagels. And of course, they've got bagels for all occasions. I know the holiday season is starting to get away from us, but they do have Christmas flavored bagels and other holiday bagels as well. And how about this? They have team specific bagels as well. If you remember back during the playoff run, they had Phillies bagels. They've got Eagles cream cheese. They're going to do a Sixers cream cheese later in the Sixers season. And who knows, maybe with the Flyers being as good as they are.
There's a cup run coming, right?
I think they got to start figuring something out. So, in an affordable brand, a lot cheaper than those Jersey bagels you're going to get up in Jersey and New York. So, for the best Brooklyn-style bagel made right here in Philly, go to www.thebagelsandco.com/store locator to find the closest Bagel & Co. near you today.
All right, so one of the things we're going to do today that we're not going to be able to get to, I think that we'll save it for maybe Tuesday's show. Is that because we're off New Year's Day? So
yes,
Tuesday
we'll
show.
all be back together on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a draft of the top remaining free agents, but we went down a baseball rabbit hole as we
Did
tend
you
to do.
expect anything less when
No,
you and I
of
got
course
together
not.
to do a show?
Of course not.
And with John on?
Yeah, that was fun.
It's just three dudes being bros.
Yeah. So I mentioned it in passing, and the chat's kind of run away with it. Wander Franco, for those that didn't see the story, apparently both of his homes were raided in the Dominican over the week, this past week. They're searching for him because there's a warrant out for him, and he is apparently on the run from all the reports I'm seeing. If you're unaware, it was sexual relations with a minor. Really creepy and horrible story. And, one of the top prospects in all of baseball for the past, basically 2 or 3 years. Well, he's past a prospect now, but he was the top prospect in baseball. So it could be a great career extinguished before it even had a chance.
Can I ask one thing of media outlets and sports outlets when a situation like this happens? I don't give a damn about a player's stats when something like this happens. I saw something the other day on ESPN, and they were talking about a criminal situation. I'm not going to dive into the details because it was pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And the ticker they put up down the bottom said averages 21 points per game this season, was expected to be a first-round pick. I don't care.
Oh, is this
I don't care.
The Illinois kid?
Yes, it was the Illinois kid. And I'm like, this is humanity. We're talking about human beings being affected for the rest of their life. And I don't mean the player. I don't give a damn about the player. I'm talking about the victims in this situation being affected for the rest of their lives. And I don't care. 21 points per game. I don't care.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Stop putting stats up. It's so weird to me.
It is weird.
I was sitting with my wife and I pointed that out and she goes, "That's gross. That's just it's disingenuous at this point. If you have a situation
where you belong in jail for a long time,
right?
Your performance on the field is irrelevant.
Means nothing.
Yeah,
it just means all I know is that you're a bad person.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like he's a bad person. So we'll see how that story comes to a conclusion. But we will do the remaining free agent draft next week. I saw another comment in there saying, what about Bieber or Clase? Emmanuel Clase, I saw the kind of the rumors pick up a little bit over this past week about his trade market. I would love for them to go out and do that and just load up on the bullpen.
Jamie, I know we're about to get out of here, and we could go down a rabbit hole in this one. I don't get the Guardians.
I don't either.
So they moved Aaron Savali last year for nothing to the Rays, who are just perpetually getting good players. They're looking at moving Bieber. They're looking at moving Clase. And I know that they're a small market team and they don't want to spend a
Clase
ton
makes
of
no money and he's under control for like 4 more years.
His contract specifically is just
what are
crazy
you
to me.
doing?
I don't
Cleveland?
understand it. They have 4 guys who could be, everyday starting outfielders, and they're going to move one of them. And the one that they probably should move, who's Miles Straw, is the one that they'll end up keeping. Like Stephen Kwan is on team control for another like a billion years. Like Cleveland has a legitimate chance if they just kept the core together to be very, very good.
Yeah. So we'd love Clase if he does get on the block. You have to wait. I don't know if Montgomery and Snell are holding up the Bieber and maybe Burns if Milwaukee decides to sell.
I think they might be a little bit.
Yeah, maybe those teams are on the fence because there is like Milwaukee has talent. Like, do you really want to sell Corbin Burns unless you're getting back some ready major league talent?
Yeah, so the only guy that they seem to be wanting to spend money on is Jackson Trino, who's never played a major league game.
Matt Klentak special right there.
Listen, I think Trino's going to be a damn good baseball player. But it's weird to me that that's the only guy you're willing to spend your money on.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff we still didn't get to, including the NL Cy Young Awards or odds came out. So we'll get into that on Tuesday. Because as you said earlier, like I look at this list and I go, damn, NL pitching is really not that impressive overall.
And maybe that's why MBD's top 40 is not as far-fetched as my initial gut reaction was.
No, it's probably not. So we'll dive into some of that on Tuesday. We'll do the remaining draft. And then, January, we're going to start the Down on the Farm report where we start deep diving some of these prospects. We're going to do Guess That Batting Stance. We got a lot in store for the new year. So I'm looking forward to that.
No cheating, I promise.
No cheating.
I'm holding you both to a higher standard.
If you're watching, no cheating
in this game.
And there's a lot of good stuff. One thing you wanted to hit on before we got out of here, Andrelton Simmons retired yesterday.
Yeah.
And when you put this stat up in our show sheet about the defensive WAR seasonal marks over the last 30 years,
it's him.
It's
him.
He's three of the
him.
5 names. Now, when I was looking at this, so he had a 5.1 defensive WAR in 2017, a 4.3 in 2013, a 4.1 in 2015. The other 2 guys in the top 5 are your boy Kiermaier, who had a 4.6 in 2015, and Darren Erstad had a 4.2 in 2002. Now, I saw this list and I went, wow, Simmons really dominated this list. And then I started thinking about Johan Rojas. And is Johan Rojas a guy that can get into this discussion of defensive WAR, over the last 30 years? I absolutely think he can.
So I know Andrelton Simmons had injury problems and it kind of derailed his career a little bit. And you could tell like he wasn't the same player towards the back end of the LA run, and then he was kind of jumping around teams a little bit. But in order for Rojas to be that guy, can he hit 250? Because here's Simmons' full season averages just when he was with Atlanta in his first couple years in LA. 248, 244, 265. He got up to 281, 278, and then he had a really good offensive year. He hit 292 in his third full season in LA. This guy, the fact that he only won 4 Gold Gloves is kind of amazing.
It kind of is, yeah.
Because he is one of the best defensive. I tweeted the other day, he's a wizard with the glove. He's one of the best defensive players I've ever seen. If Rojas, I know it's 2 entirely different positions, but if Rojas can hit 250,
I think he absolutely can be a 4+.
That's your everyday defensive stud.
Yeah. So shout out to Simmons on a pretty good career. Unfortunately derailed. Now I was going to hit you with one piece of trivia as we're signing off here. This is from Todd Zalecki's morning newsletter. Tyler, I ask you, who has the most walk-off hits in Phillies history? The 4 options: Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, Michael Jack Schmidt, and Del Ennis.
So my guess is not on there. So I was going to guess Jason Worth, and I don't.
Wow.
I don't think.
I think
that's
he
correct.
does have like 9 or 10.
He was up there,
which is close to the second place guy who has 12 walk-off
So
hits.
this says to me, like, you have these names, and you immediately go, well, I know the least about Del Ennis. Just because of when he played. It makes you go, this is a trick question. It's going to be Del Ennis.
And then Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rollins were also very clutch.
Right. I think I'm going to go with J-Roll as my final answer, but it wouldn't shock me if the answer ends up being Ennis.
The answer is the obvious one. The Hall of
Really?
Famer, the greatest
it was
third
just too
base.
obvious.
It was so obvious. Michael Jack Schmidt, and this was courtesy of Todd Zalecki, has 15 walk-off hits,
Wow.
including a franchise record 10 walk-off home runs. Ryan Howard is second on the list with 12 walk-off hits. So I thought that was a fun little piece of trivia from Todd.
Two of the ones that mattered the most came off of the same arm and the same bat. So Jimmy Rollins off Jonathan Broxton will be remembered forever.
Yes, it certainly will. It was a lot of fun talking
man,
baseball
cool.
with you today. We will be back on Tuesday. I will be back here on Sunday for Eagles Cardinals pre and post game with Bo and Zach. Monday is a company holiday here, so to everybody in the chat, to everybody that checks out the show, we appreciate you. We hope you have a great, healthy, happy, and awesome New Year. And
Don't do it.
I'm not going to
do it.
I'm not going to do it. I am not Renee. I am not going to say what she always says, and you probably know. So I'm not going to say it, but I hope everybody has a great New Year's. Thanks to Julia for producing us today, and we will see you all next week here on the PHLY Phillies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.